MetsXMFanZone Podcast, home of your everything Mets. If you guys love our shows, you guys can always tweet, like, and subscribe. But to get more of your Mets fan news, you guys can share, like, and subscribe to our channel. We got a couple of updates we're going to show here. So we're going to talk a little on some of the updates of our services. And then we're going to talk a little bit on some Mets today. If you guys would like to get your questions answered, please feel free to share it, like, subscribe. We're going to do a whole Q&A today. Somebody said, sorry. So we're going to do a whole Q&A. We'll answer some questions. Normally, we're just doing a podcast, just reading out some of our news and reading out the rosters. And obviously the rosters are here up on our sheets. But I mean, we got some really exciting news, to be honest. Today was a very successful day for the Mets. Pitching, I think right now is really on point right now. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Manaea. Alvarez, okay, didn't have such a great game. Francisco Lindor had his first home run in today's game. Looked really good there. I think there are so many guys that it's kind of a step up. You want to be able to see on what certain guys are doing. We all know that it's very early in the game. So, you're going to see some hiccups, some cold, some guys being really cold, some guys being really good. You got Lopez, you got Manaea, you got Adrian Hauser. There's so many guys that have really been stepping up on this Mets starting rotation. Luis Severino had a really good inning night before. Obviously, Sean Manaea had a pretty good game today. I think the Mets are very good in pitching right now. I won't say the bullpen is super great, but I do think that the bullpen was a really big step up. And having Diaz there, I think that was such a big pivotal point in last year's season, was having Diaz being out for the whole entire season, and it didn't really look good for the Mets. So now, going into the 2024 season with a lot of guys, being healthy, keeping Luis Severino off the injuries list, keeping Edwin Diaz off the injuries list. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of this rotation. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of the bullpen. And, granted, not everybody's going to have a great game, and we know this. We know not every game is going to be a great game. But in the last, and going from the first start of the season, from the Padres, or going into this season with Cincinnati, this was a 2 out of 3 series. If the Mets could do a 2 out of 3 series each and every time, I'd be okay with that. What was it? Last year, we were missing a lot of that because of the back end of the rotation with Diaz and no one being really stable and pitching great there. So, do we have this year to look forward to on how being successful with starting rotation, and just having Kodai Senga being put into that lineup is even going to be even better. JD Martinez coming in and having a pretty decent, spring there down in Port St. Lucie. Guys that we could see step up in this year. So, I'm looking forward for the Mets to really, I would say, progress. You want that progression. And I think that when in regards to hitting is starting to heat up a little bit. We're starting to see guys like Brandon Nimmo get on base. I'm not worried about Brandon Nimmo always getting me hits. If Brandon Nimmo could just get on by walks alone, I'm okay with that, because then you could work with the lineup a little bit. You could bring Frankie down, or you could bring Brett Beatty up. I'm liking what I'm seeing out of Brett Beatty too. So, I like it on how he's finally getting into his groove with his bat. And, if you ever watch his approach on the dish, he's starting to really, as he comes up, comes down with that shoulder, and I love on his launch angle. His launch angle is insane. I think Brett Baty could really become such a good pivotal hitter. And, I've said it in the past, who knows if the Mets are going to really, make him such a big career out of himself. I think Brett Baty is a very good hitter. I like him there at third base. They could somewhat shift him in the, put him in DH somewhere sometimes if he's not playing third. But, I think that with Brett Baty, he's going to be very successful. And then going with Marte. Marte came in hot. Went a little cold, came in a little hot again. So, there are so many guys that are really contributing and really being, the players that you are going to see throughout the season. So, again, I go with pitching, but I'm also going to go with hitting. And, if hitting becomes on point this year and hitting becomes, to that point, then I think the Mets have a very successful year. So, and they looked good in this series. I think they kind of felt a little bit pressure going into the season opening week. Now that they started to really kind of relax into their positions just a little bit, the team needs to kind of sit back and go, wait a minute, hold on, let's figure out our thoughts here. Let's figure it out what we need to do. And I think, with going into this 2024 season, really just puts it over the top. And I know Met fans out there are like, they're just completely negative. But you got to look at it as into a positive when you see the Mets going down, and not hitting good. What can they, what can they do better? What can they make, a better starter somewhere? Can they change a certain pitch? And, I like on what I'm seeing out of Manaea with that curveball. That curveball is very effective. 2 and 3 counts, very effective. I think watching and analyzing him in today's game, pitcher instinct. I am a pitcher. I pitched, before. I know what it's like. It's very fatigued out there. You're going 4 or 5 innings. I think as the game goes on, you get a little bit more looser. But going into 4 or 5 innings, the 4th inning, he looked a little, off balanced a little bit. I think that he was coming too far off the mound, which I've noticed. He is now starting to, try to get that repetition in getting and planting that left foot down. And he needs to be able to get that launch angle in a little bit more. He kind of puts that little tip on the out when you're throwing, and if you're throwing from the left-hand side and you have the back foot, a lot of the times they'll come up just a touch. But if you look at Manaea, his foot kind of goes like this in a way, which, does it plant? He doesn't plant it down fully. And I think that what's happening is that during the 4th inning, his back foot was coming up just a touch, and he wasn't executing that curveball in on guys. What I want to see is him try to plant that foot down just a little bit more to, throw it and make that curveball a nice standpoint. So I really think that with the way Manaea pitches and the way Manaea is actually gratitude each pitch, I think it's working for him. However, I think he needs to just get that foot down a little bit more. Great innings. I think he went really good for 5 innings a plus, and he had a really good night. But again, I want to see that foot come down just a little bit more on him. And I think that Hefner will definitely talk with him and work with him on that. I think Hefner is a really, really nice pitching coach. Very successful.